Given the current focus on the rise of the use of cash, it's worth remembering that each year Australian households are collectively charged somewhere between $1 billion and $4 billion in payment surcharges, which is a fee paid by customers in addition to the price of a good or service, allowing merchants to pass on the cost of the customer's chosen payment method. These days, it's mostly debit transactions, which may be triggered by electronic payments from phones and other devices, as well as debit and credit cards. This has meant that the RBA recently accelerated a review into merchant payment costs and surcharging, and it's now released the 90-plus submissions received from interested parties, and it's clearly creating a storm, with some calling for the banning of said surcharges and others arguing that banning surcharges will result in higher prices to consumers. When surcharging was introduced around 20 years ago, the RBA put Australia out of step with most of the rest of the world, where the practice is illegal. At the time, the central bank's intention was to use them as a price signal to customers that the more expensive payment systems, at the time credit cards, were a burden for the seller. Now, I've always believed that this was a policy error. They've actually been outmaneuvered by the banks and lately by fintechs, who've introduced fixed payment plans in an attempt to reduce payment fee complexity for business customers. These plans let a merchant pay the same cost irrespective of what card the customer uses. But this has resulted in more surcharging of debit cards, which is the fastest growing segment of the payments market and which in theory should be the cheapest. Actually, payment revenue earned from merchants is shared between banks that issue cards to the consumer, the interchange fees, which are around on average 30% of the direct costs. The network providers like Visa, MasterCard and EFTPOS, called the scheme fees, that's around 20%. And the banks that supply the physical terminal to the retailer, the acquirer margin, representing about half of the cost. This is all obfuscated, of course.